Well, good morning. It's certainly a warm welcome to everyone, and it's a privilege to welcome everybody to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. I'm Sheriff Chad Chronister, and today we gather for something extremely important, and it's an amendment that will continue to ensure that our veterans are taken care of, and also make sure that the citizens, our communities, have a voice in who their constitutional officers are. So let me take a moment and thank the Florida Sheriff's Association for all their hard work on educating the public in the entire state of Florida on this important amendment. And at this time, I will turn the program over to Sheriff Mike Prendergast from Citrus County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Pleasure. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm Sheriff Mike Prendergast. And the amendment that we're talking about today is one of the most important amendments on the ballot this November. Amendment 10 is what we call the Protection Amendment. Amendment 10 is on the ballot because it jeopardizes the way of life for some of our veterans and their families and their futures. And it goes right to the core of protecting veterans and thanking them for their service by preserving the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. The Department of Veterans Affairs provides essential services and benefits to those veterans who've served in times of peace and war, gone off to combat, and returned back home to the great state of Florida. And we have the third largest population of veterans in the United States of America right here in the Sunshine State. So this amendment goes to the heart of the matter of protecting them, their benefits, and their families, no matter when they served and no matter where they served. But Amendment 10 is also called the Protection Amendment because it provides for the Office of Domestic Security and Counterterrorism to ensure that we're doing everything that we can in law enforcement to protect our families, our loved ones, and our futures, and most importantly, our way of life. Amendment 10 also returns the power of your right to vote for public servants. These public servants collect public funds, they protect our communities, and they also protect our way of life. And this ensures that your sheriff, your tax collector, your property appraiser, your clerk of the court, and of course your supervisor of elections are elected by the people and directly accountable and very transparent to the people they serve. Sadly, Florida citizens in several communities across our state have lost their right to vote for some of their constitutional officers. Amendment 10 was written to guarantee the right of citizens and ensure that that will never happen again. This amendment prohibits a county charter from abolishing those county offices, transferring duties of a county officer, or altering the length of terms of those county officers, or establishing any selection of those county's constitutional officers other than by direct election by the people. Each of us standing here provides critical services and support functions to the citizens of our communities. And we are all accountable to the people we serve, those people who have elected us and sent us to do a great job for their communities and protect the community's rights. There are 20 charter counties in Florida, and 8 of those counties have either altered or all out abolished one of their constitutional officers. This amendment strengthens home rule and ensures home rule is not abused. Amendment 10 is not against charters at all. It's about strengthening the role of your constitutional officers in those charter counties. Constitutional officers should be separate from a county board. They should be accountable to the people they serve. When a select group of people wields all the power, whether through a board or through some other individual, there is no separation of powers. And Amendment 10 returns the power to the people. I'll be followed now by our distinguished colleague, Ms. Frank.
Thank you very much, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to make this very short and say that what it is, Amendment 10 is your right to vote. Just think about it. Today, if someone took your right away from you, what would happen? I don't think that that is a productive thing, because it turns it into a real political game of appointments that the public cannot have any input into. And constitutional officers are running the most significant part of the daily lives of citizens in this state. For clerks, who handle all of the official records, all of the court documents. We want that to be transparent, and we want to be held accountable, and we want to be held accountable by voters, not by politicians who may hide behind the cloak. There is no Wizard of Oz in our business. We are directly responsible and accountable to each voter. It is a right to vote amendment. Think about that. In this day and age, everyone knows the value of the vote more than ever before. And I think they can understand this amendment if it's told to them very simply. It protects your right to vote. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Charles Thomas. I'm the Pinellas County Tax Collector, and I'm here to talk about the benefits that Amendment 10 will bring to our state, to our citizens. Direct accountability between county officials and the citizens they serve is lost when offices are abolished or appointed by another governing body. In counties where the office of the tax collector has been abolished, the person or department responsible for statutory tax collector duties report to a mayor or board of county commissioners instead of directly to the people they serve. That eliminates the checks and balances that the Constitution already places, which gives the responsibility for valuing the tax roll to the property appraiser and for collecting those dollars to the tax collector to eliminate that conflict of interest. Again, to establish that so important checks and balances to make sure that the tax collector and the constitutional officers directly report to the citizens. The right to vote is the very cornerstone of democracy. The ability to vote protects the right of Floridians by holding their tax collector as well as all constitutional officers accountable. Thank you.
At this time, do you have any questions that we can answer for you?
Talk a little bit about how this also includes partisanship and making these positions, I guess, nonpartisan on the ballot. Is that an element of Amendment 10?
Can you be more specific with your question?
I was told that, I guess, in a sense that partisan, a lot of sheriffs on the ballot have, Republican or Democrat. They are required to choose a party. But does anything under Amendment 10 change that?
No, it does not. Amendment 10 is not aimed at eliminating the system that we have in place when it comes to electing folks from either the Republican Party, a non-party affiliate, or a Democratic Party candidate to come forth. This amendment is purely about protecting the right of the citizens to vote for that elected constitutional officer that they feel will best serve their needs in that particular constitutional office that's been established in our state constitution.
And I know in, I believe, Miami-Dade County, they don't have a sheriff. They have a police director, which is a little bit different.
That's correct.
But will this affect counties like that?
Yes, it would have an effect on those counties like that by ensuring that that sworn law enforcement officer and that chief law enforcement officer for that community is directly elected by the people, and that chief law enforcement officer reports back to the people, not to another elected official or an appointed person from a county board or other municipal government that might be out there.
And what do you want, I know this is a big education push, but what do you want voters to know specifically about this amendment?
Amendment 10 is all about protecting the families of Florida and Florida citizens. Every family in this community that we live in, all across the state, all 67 county, has a right through our state constitution to directly elect those constitutional officers that serve them for those particular jobs. And for counties like Miami-Dade, having that accountability there and that transparency and the responsiveness by an elected constitutional officer leaps far ahead of any other type of mechanism that's out there to have that law enforcement mission and that public safety mission taken care of. And what it really gets down to is that elected sheriff, when a citizen calls, that elected sheriff goes out and solves problems. They're not just law enforcement officers. They're problem solvers for their community. And it goes far beyond the full spectrum that most people think about for traditional law enforcement. When a citizen calls about something, the sheriff might not be the right answer, but the sheriff knows how to reach out to his or her other constitutional officers and ask them for support or assistance to make that happen for those citizens. There's no other office like that, and indeed, Florida is uniquely poised to remain the leader when it comes to not only law enforcement and public safety, but having a constitutional government where all of the constitutional officers across the state are directly elected and directly accountable to the folks who send them to those offices in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sheriff, can you mention any instances of counties that have done what you're trying to prohibit right
Well, for example, Volusia County, and one of those, that's one of the charter counties. The sheriff there is somewhat hamstrung when it comes to doing his constitutional duties because of the mechanisms that have been set up by the Board of County Commissioners. What I think you would be wise to do is to directly go out to a sheriff like Sheriff Chitwood and talk to him and ask him what separates him from the rest of his colleagues that are members of the Florida Sheriff's Association. And the same thing would be for down in Miami-Dade with Director Perez. But however, Director Perez is an appointee, so he might not be able to be as forthcoming with his information as an elected constitutional officer is. But really, what we all know is that additional layers of bureaucracy are far more expensive when it comes to local governance. And local government is truly the closest to the people and the most responsive to the people. So those 8 counties where you don't have that among the 20 charter counties don't have that ability to reach right into that constitutional officer. Not just the sheriff. It might be the property appraiser, the tax collector, the clerk of the court, or even the supervisor of elections. And having that layer of bureaucracy in there puts that separation so the people don't get the true access that they need and get the questions answered or the solutions to their problems taken care of on the spot like that at the snap of a finger when they make that first phone call. It may take days, weeks, or months sometimes to solve problems that if you had a constitutional officer like the one standing behind me, they could step up and solve that problem immediately. Any other questions? Anybody want to add anything? Thank you very much. Travel safe.